All right, guys, before we get into our projects, I want to talk a little bit about functions and directives. So I have the documentation page open here. But before that, whenever we start a new project, what I want you to do is take the Tailwind starter that we just created and duplicate this, okay? Because you don't want to put your project in here, because then you overwrite everything. So we want a clean starter to start with. That's why I called it that. So let's just copy and paste that. All right, so now I have simple Tailwind starter 2, and I'm just going to take this one and put it off to the side for when I need to create a new project. So that's going to be kind of the process throughout this. Or, like I said earlier, you can still use the CDN if you want. But let's go ahead and now change this. I'm just going to call it, I'll just call it functions-directives. It's not an actual project. It's just to show you a couple things that we can do. So let's open this with VS Code. All right, and normally if you were to clone the simple Tailwind starter from GitHub, you'd have to run an npm install so that it installs the node modules folder with the dependencies, which in this case is just Tailwind. But we just copied our folder directly, which already has that, so we don't have to run npm install. We can just simply run npm run watch, and it should work. All right, and then we'll open up in our index.html. I'm going to just go live with live server. Okay, so now we're all set up. And I'm going to get rid of the text 3XL here because I want to show you something. I'm going to get rid of that, and now we just have our H1. Now, this documentation page kind of shows you all the stuff that I'm going to explain, but I do want to give you some examples. So directives are specific rules that you can use in your CSS. So if we open up input CSS, we're already using the Tailwind directive. And it says right here, this is used to insert Tailwind's base components, utilities, and variant styles into your CSS. So like base includes things like headings and so on. Components is like buttons. So these are the main parts of Tailwind. And these getting compiled are going into our style.css here and creating all this stuff. All right, and what we can do here, let's see, let's look at some of these directives. So we have the layer directive, which we can use to basically create custom styles without having to add classes. So one of the big complaints about Tailwind from a lot of people is there's so many CSS classes in your HTML. But what we can do here is we can say @layer, and let's say for the base layer we want to take our H1 and we want to add a default style of, let's say, font size, and we'll do 2 rem. All right, so if I save that and I come over here, notice that this is now 2 rem. And we have no class on this H1. In fact, if we look at the compiled CSS, our style CSS, actually I already have it showing right here, it added this H1. All right. Now, in addition to that, I just want to show you something. If we add an H2, just so we have a little more to work with, and we could add down here, let's say H2, and we could say we want that to be a font size of 1.5. So we can do this, that's fine, or we could use the apply directive and use existing Tailwind classes. So for example, I could say apply for H1's the text-3XL class. All right, and then let's say we want to apply for H2's, we'll do the text-XL class. Save that, and now you can see those are being applied. If we look at our compiled CSS, now H1 has this font size with this line height, because that's what comes with the text 3XL, and then it has this for the text XL. All right, so really cool, and this is why it's recommended to use, this kind of environment over the CDN. Now, you may want to have custom classes like, let's say, BTN Blue, like kind of like the higher level Bootstrap type classes. So you can do that. So let's go down here and let's use layer again. And I'm going to create a button. So we're going to use components. So layer components. And let's say we want to have a class of BTN-blue. And then we're just going to apply a bunch of Tailwind classes to this. So let's say BG-blue we'll do 500, and let's say padding on the y-axis we'll do 2, padding on the x-axis we'll do 4, we'll make it rounded -XL, and let's say font -bold, and let's close that up. And then on hover we'll make it, let's say BG-blue and make it 700. All right, so let's save that, and then back in our index.html, let's create a button. Let's give it a class of btn-blue, and we'll just say click. And there we go. And we might want to make the text white as well. So let's say text-white. Okay, so now we have this higher level class that we can use. So you're not always stuck with having millions of classes in your HTML file. Again, I'm probably not going to do much of this throughout our projects because the point of it is to really drill those classes into your head. But if you want to go ahead and do this yourself and create some, create your own classes, you can do that. And that's the point of me making this video, is to show you how to do that. Now, another thing we can do is use a couple functions. We have a theme function and we have a screen function. So what theme does is it allows us to grab config values. So in our config, let's say we want to extend our spacing. And I think I gave you this example in a past video, but let's say we want to do 128. Okay, because 96 is the largest by default, which I think is 24 rem. So let's say this, we want it to be 32 rem. Okay, and then let's go into our input CSS, and actually let's go into our HTML and let's add a class here of, we'll say content-area, and we'll put a paragraph, and then we'll put lorem, let's say lorem 50. Okay, and then let's add, no, we'll just keep that. And then let's go into our input, and we'll come down here, and let's say we add our custom class of content-area. And that's another thing I probably should have mentioned, is you can just create custom classes like this as well. But let's say we want to apply, let's apply green, or not green, BG-green-200. All right, so if we do that, we should see the green. And then let's say I want to add a height. So I'm going to add height. Now, if I want to get that config value, I can simply use the theme function like this, and I can pass in here first the object that I want, which is spacing, and then dot, and then the key, which in my case is 128, right? So spacing and then 128 should give me this value of 32 rem. So let's go back here, let's save that. And now if we come over here and we check this out, we should see for content area, we have a height of 32 rem. So we're directly grabbing that theme value using the theme function. And then we also have a screen function, which allows us to specify the screen, the breakpoints like medium, large, small, whatever, in our media queries if we decide to use those. So we can say media and then screen, and then let's say for XL. Okay, and I'll say for XL, then let's say body, and for that we'll go ahead and just we'll just use apply here, and we'll say BG-black, and let's say text-white. All right, so now when I make this bigger and it hits the XL point, the body turns black. So I don't have to put the max width 640 or whatever, because we can customize those. We might not know exactly what that number is. So this just allows us to put the breakpoint size in there, which is pretty cool. All right, so I just thought that before we jump into projects, I would show you this because this stuff can really come in handy, and I think it's important for you guys to know.